Greetings and good Thursday morning, the 4th of May. May the 4th be with you. Once again, it is still 2023, the third decade of the 21st century. I always open my videos with that to sort of highlight the fact that it is indeed the third decade of the 21st century and make the comparison of what topics we're talking about as a global society, as a national society, versus where people had predicted us to be. Now, I apologize in advance. I'm trying out the whole headset thing here to see if perhaps maybe there's better clarity on the mic. I don't know. My camera has a microphone, but we'll see. Hopefully I can get some decent clarity on this microphone if I wasn't getting good clarity before. So the first thing I want to do is, before I just start rambling about anything and everything, I always like to read, react, and respond to comments. So between Rumble and YouTube, I have some comments that I have to respond to. Real quick, I love what Rumble stands for, and I love that Rumble is kind of like the antithesis to YouTube. However, the thing, unless there's something I haven't figured out yet, unless it just doesn't jump right out like a snake and bite you on the face, Rumble's not really good at letting you know that you have comments. Like, I have to use both. I have to use the app on my phone to look at my notifications and then possibly read them, or at least figure out what video they're on, and then I have to go to Rumble on my desktop to where I can see them a little better, unless of course I've got my glasses. So I wish the desktop was as easy to find comments on Rumble as it is on my phone. But first and foremost, Stace Catalan, responding to my last video from April 28th. Hubby and I only knew each other 2 months prior. We have both evolved to different stages at different times, but continue supporting each other. I enjoy that we can have conversations despite the differences you and I have. You know, and that is a fair and interesting point. First and foremost, you know, congrats. I don't know, after my time in the service, one of the things I had sort of observed was that I called it the frat boy sorority girl syndrome, where there's a period in your life where most normal people would spend in college, where, you know, you're a woo girl, sorority girl, and you're a yeah dude, you're a frat boy, you know, just where you have to kind of like soil your oats, so to speak, and kind of just, you know, like the Amish do, like a rumspringa, so to speak, before you can come back to the fold. And what I noticed from my time in the military is anybody who got married way too young and did not allow that opportunity to progress, to you know, kind of purge the demon from your system, with rare exception, most marriages did not end well. Just my thoughts. So I'm hoping you and your husband were at an appropriate time and space when you did get married, and that it's working out for you, obviously. Have my wife and I changed? I probably would have to say yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody can say they've stayed the same, but I think, if anything, we've changed together. Do we agree on everything? Maybe not. But, you know, just for whatever reason, it works for us. As far as you and I having disagreements, I've tried to say it numerous times, possibly in many different ways. While I do have opinions on certain subjects, and some of those opinions may be strong, and I may have sarcastic opinions on certain subjects, I became self-aware that if I can think and feel a certain way and I still think I'm a good person, why can't other people think and feel differently and still think that they're good people? And why can't we both be good people? We just hold a different opinion. And I said that the problem is, it's like other forces, if you will, pardon the conspiracy theory here, but it's like other people are actively trying to divide us, you know, rather than, hey, well, I think this, well, you know, I think that, okay, roger that, you know, we differ in opinion, that's cool, but we have to be able to have these discussions, and I don't think we should be dehumanizing each other. And, you know, Stace, that's why I'm glad to have you on the channel, so that we can continue to have these discussions. What else do I got? All right, the Pipe Boss, Mikey Pipes, responding to my video from April 26th, 2022 on Rumble. It took me a hot minute to find it, Mike, so I apologize in advance. Most of this is simply a diversion of attention for the masses. I tell people every day we're headed back to a time where there's nobles and lords, and the majority of true people are going to once again become serfs in servitude to them. Take the transgender thing. It's ridiculous the amount of outrage over a group that doesn't even make up to 1% of the population. However, they serve an interesting purpose. While everyone shoots cans of Bud Light, okay, so that might have been your thought. However, they serve an interesting purpose while everyone shoots cans of Bud Light. The government, which to me is basically morphed into organized crime in collusion with bank and corporate gangsters, screws us all in permanent ways we can only shoot our way out of one day. Once it's gone, it ain't coming back, not without bloodshed and a whole lot of suffering. So probably a few things that can be picked apart there in response to. So yeah, I don't know the analytics. I don't know statistically what the actual population of legitimate transgender individuals in the United States or Canada or whatever make up. I do think it's an extremely minute percentage, but they are getting an awful lot of attention. And that's why I always say, welcome back to whatever today's date is, third decade of the 21st century. In the third decade of the 21st century, we can't seem to stop talking about trans and drag queens and all of this stuff. And it's like, how much does it really affect the masses? How much does it really, what percentage of the population does it really affect? You know, and you know, I guarantee you the everyday run-of-the-mill average trans person and average drag performer is not trying to garner attention, is not trying to have access to kids, is not a TikTok influencer. They're just trying to live their lives, you know, and just exist. You know, a band I listen to that I don't think puts out any more albums. If they do, I don't get to hear about it that often. They're out of the Atlanta area from Georgia. A band called Stuck Mojo. And in the same vein as Iron Maiden, Saxon, some of the power metal out of Europe from that time frame, during a point in their album, they would have like a speech, if you will, you know, similar in vein to like Manowar, Saxon, Iron Maiden, etc. And there was one thing during a particular album, I think it was the album Declaration of a Headhunter, circa 2000, where during this little monologue there was an excerpt that basically said, when in fact we elect government, we create governments and elect leaders to preserve the freedoms that are inherently ours. And numerous elected officials from the earliest days of our country, while potentially imperfect souls themselves, warned and cautioned against the government from becoming all-powerful, that this was supposed to be a democratic republic of the people, for the people. But that also can be dangerous as well when you consider, you know, the mob mentality and whatnot. And that's a whole other rabbit hole I could fall down. Yeah, I mean, campaigns are not cheap. It takes money to run a campaign. It takes money to get your name out there and your face, your voice heard, so that people know who you are, so that they can know if they want to vote for you or not. And that all takes money. And if there's any chance in hell that business thinks that you could potentially benefit them because your thoughts and your ideologies and your proposed policies line up with them, they may fund you in exchange for some quid pro quo. I mean, it's very rational and very understandable, but at the same time, at what point does it exceed being ethically okay and being unethical? And quite frankly, I don't know the answer to that. What I will say is this, and I've said it numerous times at the risk of being repetitive, I don't know the solution, I don't know the way forward, but at the conclusion of the Civil War, when the South lost, the South should have lost. Like, no more Democratic Party. But at the end of the day, how do you get rid of the Democratic Party and the ideology and everything associated with it? I still believe to this day that the Democratic Party, out of the two, is the most evil of the two. But again, that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. Instead, what I'd rather focus on is, capping off with a different area of conversation. But by all means, anybody watching this, please feel free to comment, feel free to ask questions, feel free to ask me to elaborate. If need be, I have not done this since the beginning of my channel. I can do a well-researched video. I can thoroughly research it. I can put my resources in the comment or in the description section. I can do that if that's something somebody's interested in. In my back catalog, I once did a video pertaining to the Democratic Party. I wonder if that's the video that got removed. I'll have to go. I don't watch my videos, at the risk of being narcissistic and yet oxymoronic. So you don't want to be narcissistic by watching your videos, but you make videos and put them out on... Yeah, I get it. All right, the irony is not lost. I once did a video about the Democratic Party and how the Democratic Party got a foothold in the northern states, which was predominantly Republican, and the controversy regarding the proposed switch. But again, if you want to do a deeper dive on that, by all means, hit me up. I'll be more than happy to, do that for you. In other news, a couple of different things. I have ordered a couple of 3D printers so that my Mandalorian cosplay can hopefully take off. I can't speak for anybody else, but EVA foam has been kicking my butt. I'm like a mental patient in a straitjacket when it comes to EVA foam. I just can't seem to get it. I've watched I don't know how many videos and be like, oh yeah, a little bit of heat gun, a little bit of glue, blah, blah, blah. There you go, there it is. And I'm like, yeah, no, I have tried my damnedest and I just can't get it to work. So I'm going to try the 3D printing route. We'll see how that goes. Still waiting on my 3D printer. Not sure, but I think it's going to go over here somewhere. I got plenty of space over here. I know you can't see. I'm not going to maneuver the camera, but so hopefully that'll take off. With any luck, I will have something done by GalaxyCon in Raleigh, which is the end of July. At the rate they're going, I don't know that I'll have my printer in time to even make one Mandalorian costume, but we'll see. In other news, it took me about 2 years to not only find the courage, but try to figure out what to say. I finally reached out to my long-lost half-brother. If you're not familiar with the story, I'll try to do it in less than 5 minutes. At some point in time in 2018, my wife and I did Ancestry DNA and forgot about it. I think we got our results and we were like very interested on where our ethnic origins came from. Other than that, we didn't do much else with it, and we forgot about it. About 3 years, give or take, later, I'm at work with a coworker, and he was telling me all about his experiences with Ancestry.com and how he had found a long-lost half-sister connected to a long-lost half-brother, connected to a long-lost biological father, all of which had no idea he ever existed. And that the sister lives in South Carolina, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because, I've kind of sort of got a similar situation. So that night I went home and I looked on Ancestry.com, and sure as shit, I had a hint. I had a DNA match for a potential first cousin in Illinois, which is where I'm from. Well, not ready to commit right away to, okay, yeah, this is verifiable. I did a quick little Google search, and essentially the short version is this. I found an obituary for what would be my biological grandfather, and it said, he is survived by, one of the survivors was my potential first cousin. So no good way to say it, I stalked my first cousin on Facebook and sent him a message, and he responded. He was quite motivated at first. I think we talked maybe 2 or 3 times. Everything seemed cool. Turns out he married a girl I graduated high school with. He gave me some information. He also, and most importantly, verified that the disease I had and the disease that caused complications that would eventually take my firstborn son's life, that it does run on my biological father's side of the family. In addition to the information, in addition to the information he gave me, I was basically able to Facebook stalk. I hate using that word, or that terminology, but my half brother. I'm not going to give up any names right now, but I was able to Facebook stalk my half brother, and I've been sitting on this for about 2 years now. And then just, I don't know how or why or what happened, but after repeated attempts to get a hold of my first cousin, who's been ghosting me, not really sure why, I threw caution to the wind and I said to hell with it, and I messaged my half brother, and again, long story short, he responded quite well. Turns out he lives in Arizona with my half sister and her husband, and I got a chance to speak to both of them, and it was interesting, and it kind of goes back to some of the things I've said before, where, you know, two different people can think two different things and have two different experiences and have two different outcomes. Without getting into details, apparently my biological father and the family he created with another woman and whatnot has been essentially disowned from his family. Barring any further details, barring any greater explanation, from what I understand from my half brother and half sister, my biological aunt, my father's sister, basically told them that they need to go their separate ways, that, you know, just because we're blood doesn't mean we need to be family. And I don't know if that's a situation of the sins of the father are inherited by the children. I don't know. But, you know, hopefully we'll get a chance to talk some more, maybe get to know a little bit more about that. They did ask me if, well, my brother asked me if I wanted to talk to my biological father. And I did say, well, let's slow that down a little bit. And I was like, let's try to understand something. For 47 years, I've never met this man. I don't know this man. I've only known that it was this guy versus somebody else since I was 25. Short version is, my mom told everybody else it was this other guy, when in reality it was my actual biological father. And she didn't tell me until sometime after I was 25. And that's kind of a funny story by itself, but I won't get into it. So for the last 22-ish years, not even 22, but close to 22 years, I've known the name, but that was about it. And I tried to explain to my younger half brother that, you know, for you and your sister, he's dad. You grew up with him. You knew him. That's your dad. To me, he's a stranger that I've lived without for 47 years. And I'm well aware of the fact that he may not have even known I ever existed. You know, that's no fault of his own. I know what my mom was like. I know how she probably handled it. You know, I don't blame him for anything. It's just, if my biological father is anything like me, we're both sitting here going, fuck. What the hell do you say after 47 years? You know. But, you know, by all means, feel free to comment on my interpersonal drama. I put it out there for a reason, you know, to, if nothing else, stimulate conversation. And with that in mind, since I'm coming up on 20 minutes, I wanted to share with you this. And hopefully it'll brighten your day and maybe put a smile on your face. This past Sunday, I was at the gym. Sunday's my leg day. It's usually rather slow in the gym. You know, I can get on the leg equipment, not have to worry about waiting on somebody. And I was on the elliptical doing my cardio warm-up, and a gentleman had come into the gym. I'd seen him numerous times in the last 5-ish, just going on 6 years. I've been at the gym. I don't see him consistently. He's got a mild case of cerebral palsy. You can definitely tell there's a massive difference between his right arm and his left arm. He uses a walking cane with a brace, and he was on the treadmill. I'm assuming, based on his physical limitations, he had reached his culminating point, and he could no longer continue on the treadmill. So my man decides that he's done. He's going to get off. The woman that was with him, I don't know if it's a relative, I don't know if it's a volunteer, no idea. You know, she's like, okay, roger that. She gets off the treadmill next to him and is prepared to help him. At which point, I had my headphones in, but I could see the interaction. He's like, no, I got this, I got this. He was shaking like a leaf. And in my head, I was like, brother, you ain't got this. And sure as shit, because the treadmills aren't necessarily designed for people with certain handicaps, as he was trying to step down, there's a significant distance between where there's a handrail, whatever, on a treadmill, and there's like almost like another foot of treadmill. So like he's like trying to reach back, and as you can imagine, with a mild case of cerebral palsy, it was exceeding his capacity with his coordination and whatnot. Like his elevator goes straight up and down, but his body doesn't want to cooperate in the same fashion. So his body was reaching its culminating point, and sure as shit, he fell. Not only did he fall to the ground, but he fell in between the other two treadmills. For all intents and purposes, he was stuck. And I'm watching this thing unfold. And I'm watching the woman he's with, you know, like she wants to get involved, but he kept saying, I got this, I got this. I mean, it's easy to figure out what he's saying. I got this, you know, just give me some space, I got this. And sure as shit, he maneuvered himself out from between the treadmills, got himself up to a sitting position on the treadmill, retrieved his cane all by himself, pulled himself up to a standing position, and I'm like, okay, you know, roger that. You have a good, you know, I'm thinking in my head, you know, you have a good day, man, you know, fucking A. Oh no, my man wasn't done. My man has to hobble his ass over to a stationary bike because it's a little bit safer, because apparently in his mind his cardio was not done. He had not finished his assigned task. All right, he did not finish it on the treadmill, and in spite of the incident, the obstacle, was like, fuck no, I'm not done. Hobbled his ass with his cane over to the stationary bike and continued to do more cardio. And I'm not talking like, you know, pedal every once in a while. No, like, old boy was putting in some effort in spite of his body's resistance. And I'm like, well, it's my time to go work out. I was really moved by this. I was really inspired by this. And I'm about 90% done with my workout. Old boy and the girl he's with comes into the weightlifting area. That's right. He still wasn't done. He had to lift weights. And I eventually finished my workout, and I couldn't, I've met him before, I've talked to him before, so we kind of know each other in passing. I went up to him and I told him, I was like, you know, I got to tell you, man, between what I do for a living and just life in general, there are so many people that create excuses for themselves on why they can't do something. They put these immovable obstacles in their way mentally as to why they can't do something or why they won't do something. And I was like, I watched you fall, I watched you get yourself up, and I watched you continue to finish your workout. And I was like, I gotta say, I just really appreciate that. And I was like, you know, it's very nice to see someone, you know, not set limitations for themselves and be more of an American versus an American. As it would turn out, I had some additional lifting straps in my bag that I don't use anymore. And I asked him, I was like, hey, look, I couldn't help but notice you're using 2 different weights. And I was like, is that your bad hand? And he's like, yes, it is. I gave him my lifting straps and I showed him how to use them. And I was like, look, even though your condition doesn't allow you to grip it and hold it as tightly, these wraps will potentially allow you to do the exact same weight in both hands. So, and I showed him how to use them, and I was like, they're yours, man. You know, if you want to take them home and wash them, I get it, but they're yours. And he, oh, thank you. I was like, no, thank you. All right. I think we need more of this. We need more people, you know, overcoming adversity. We need more people telling themselves, I can, and realizing that they can. All right? It's nice to see an American versus an American. I was like, you have a good day. Hopefully I'll see you in here some more. And he goes, all right, you know, and we parted ways. With all the bullshit and the nonsense going on, with all this over excessive celebration of perceived victims, and why we need to, you know, overly dote on and overly celebrate these overly entitled victims, it can get you to a place where you think, holy crap, our country is fucked. I mean, the Navy's using drag queen, a drag queen to try to recruit people. Yeah, if that goes over like a wet fart in church, I totally get it, but it's okay. It's okay, because in my mind, there is still hope for us. As a society, as a nation, hell, as a species on Earth, there's still hope. Because when I look at a man like this, a man who's probably in his late 20s, early 30s, been dealing with cerebral palsy all of his life, all right, even though it's mild versus some other people I know that have severe cases of it, he refused to accept the obstacles in his path. He refused to allow limitations to be a burden, to be an excuse for him to not do something. And I firmly believe that there are more of us like that there are more of us out there who understand, yes, I can. Yes, I will. And in my opinion, that's what it is to be an American. And that's why we will not fail. We will succeed. You can have all of your nonsense. You can have all of your pronouns and all this other stuff. If it makes you feel better, that's fine. But for those that continue to put obstacles in their way, mentally and emotionally, that keep telling yourself, I can't, I won't, that's fine. Get out of our way, because we can and we will. So, if you want to know any more about that, I'll tell you this, because it doesn't matter. Yes, he was a person of color. He was black. The person with him was black. At no point in that story did his melanin have anything to do with anything. He was a man, he was a person, he had a condition, and he was dealing with it, and he was telling himself, no, I can. You don't tell me I can't. I'm going to show you that I can. All right? That's spirit. Spirit doesn't have melanin. Spirit doesn't have intersectionality. All right? Spirit is in here. There's more people like that than you know. All right? And the majority of them are not on these social media platforms, and that's fine. But seeing him and knowing there's others like him, whether they whatever their obstacle, gives me hope. So that's my piece. You know the deal, and if you don't, here's the deal. I don't care about the notification bell. I don't care about the rumbles, the likes, the subscriptions, none of that. I'm not in it for the money. I've got a day job that I've got to get to here shortly. I'm just trying to create conversation. If anybody is like me, I can't necessarily afford to pay for my comments to be heard. I do like Super Chat. Super Chat is where you can make a one-time donation. I think that's pretty cool, but I think you have to be live for that. In any case, like a lot of more higher profile individuals that have services you got to sign up for, so on and so forth, and they cost money. I understand they're making a living that way, and I understand that's how they earn a living. I got nothing against them. But if you're like me and you can't afford to pay for your opinions to be heard, you're welcome here. All right? This is our space where us cheap bastards and bitches, I don't know, this is where we can be heard, where we can exchange information. Like Mike, like Stace, like Alberto, like anybody else who wants to, you know, get involved in conversation, whether we agree or disagree. This is our space. So if you leave a comment, I promise I will read, react, and respond. And if you do, you're awesome. Till next time, everybody, stay safe.